Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to channel. Maverick here with another episode of Gatsu no Lion. So, in the last episode, we had a pretty clever situation. Well, first of all, we finally had some shogi playing, right? It's been a while since we've had that. Indeed, the episode setup was done pretty cleverly, having a very annoying opponent, getting into Rei's nerves, and in a way also projecting that to us, the viewers, as well, allowing us to feel the same sort of frustration, the same kind of annoyingness that Rei has felt, and finally having a release at the very end there. I thought that was pretty nicely done. However, 1 week later, now that I think about that episode again, my biggest question is instead, what exactly was the purpose of that episode, right? No, obviously it might not have any purpose at all, but I'm just thinking, perhaps one of the big things about it is it allows Rei to maybe better understand himself a little bit more, particularly being scolded by some of his peers, some of the other players as well. And indeed, throughout the series, throughout the second half of the series, I mean, we do indeed see Rei kind of get scolded for, by Nikaido and the others, for instance, saying that he does harbor a certain kind of belief, a certain kind of personality, but he himself is actually kind of clueless to it, right? So I do wonder if that's, pushing him, once again, into better understanding himself, or could it be a case of just simply allowing him to interact with more people and broaden his social circle, right? Because he is kind of a social outcast, in no small part due to his upbringing. So, not really sure what's going to happen in this one. I assume we're probably going to get back to the Hina bullying arc or whatnot. So yeah, let's just jump into it and see. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. What? Ah, okay. Yeah, I agree. See? I'm on the same page as him. The students, that's one thing. A teacher, that's unforgivable. Well, you don't, but your teacher does. Although, indeed, it'd be kind of weird for him to take up this case. Not to mention, that doesn't really solve the problem. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what a teacher is supposed to do. Mm. Yeah, we actually haven't heard of this. You know, really. Wow, for all this time, I actually thought that their father also passed away. Hmm. That is a problem. Although, I think a good way to actually start this is actually allowing him to be sort of like an advisor. Just to allow Hina to have someone else to talk to who's also a teacher, maybe give her some sort of advice on how to deal with this situation and whatnot. Yeah. This is how all teachers should be, honestly. Like a pawn, one move at a time. Oh? Does this mean that Rei is in the finals? Yeah, he's in the finals. Ah, was Nikaido eliminated? Yeah. Somehow I feel like Nikaido. Hmm? Oh, damn. Hmm. Oken Dachi.
人戦の準決勝で力んで悪化させたらしくて。
そうそう。さあ島田、飲みに行くぞ。
You should probably try go to visit him.
待ってください。ただ体調崩しただけだったらいつもベッド付きのリムジンでも何でも乗って絶対戻ってくるでしょ。順位戦だってあるのに。でもしばらく入院ってそんなに悪いんですか？
桐山、聞かれても俺が答えないなら何か理由があるからだよな。そんくらいわかれ。
本当は薄々気づいてた。いつもそばを離れない花岡さん。美しく彩られた色の薄い弁当。いつもバッグの中に見えていたたくさんの薬。本当はずっと聞けなかった。二階堂が聞かれるのを嫌がってたことぐらい子供の頃から分かってた。そうですか。それならその理由ごと全部聞かせてもらうわけにはいきませんか。
Facing it head on.
島田よ、俺帰るわ。あとよろしくな。
桐山、
These are people who get it.
飯でも食ってくか。
それから島田さんは二階堂のことを話してくれた。弟弟子である男の子の話を。
また弟子を取る。先生、弟子はもう
Oh.
ずっと
Okay. So they're actually senpai kohai
なんでまた
from the same teacher.
いや、だってさ、面白い子見つけちゃったんだものさ。
将棋のプロになるにはまず奨励会に入らねばならない。そしてそれには必ず誰かの弟子にならないといけない。そしてやってきたのが4年生の坊だった。
はじめまして、二階堂春信です。
俺が島田六だ。お前の兄ちゃんだ。
あ、
仲良くな。
あれ、この子どこかで。その子には見覚えがあった。
Oh. What were you doing there?
大会のゲストで
Oh, a lecture.
時に見かけた。
Okay.
なんだあのまん丸い子、ジーヤに弁当持たせて。
下にすごい車で乗りつけたって。
感じ悪。
どうせ金持ちの道楽だ。すぐにいなくなるさ。
Looks like Conan here.
さあ、よーく噛んで30回ですぞ。
特製弁当か。金持ちのボンボンが。なんでわざわざこんな世界に。漫画でもゲームでもいくらでも買ってもらえるだろうに。少年時代貧乏で苦しんだ俺はたちまち彼をやっかんだ。ま、どうせ続かないだろう。ゲームとかパソコンの方が楽しいもんな。
お待たせしました。それでは決勝戦を行います。東京都杉並区桐山。
Oh, it's Ray. And Nikaido?
さっきのボンボン準決
Oh. This series sure is getting heavy really fast.
島田六段。
あ、いいんだよ。横になってくれ。今日は師匠の代わりに来たんだよ。師匠神経痛で今動けなくってな。はい。これ師匠。
Oh, he is a fourth grader after all.
差し入りの初版だ。
Ooh.
一曲刺すかと言ったら
いいんですか？
青黒い顔に赤みがさした。こうして俺は彼と時々刺すようになった。彼はいつでも全力で任すのにいつも骨が折れた。だがある日彼を傷つけてしまった。体調をひどく悪化させ、連敗を続けていた彼を勇気づけたくてやってしまったことだった。
そういう手加減は
He went easy on him?
もう
将棋でまで弱い人間扱いされたら、僕はどこで生きていったらいいんですか？
彼の病は難病とされるもので、一生付き合っていかねばならないものだった。もうすまなかった。もう二度とこんなことしないから。厳しい食事制限、悪化させぬようにひたすら耐えて息を殺すように過ごす日々。喧嘩もスポーツも友達と遊ぶことすらほとんどすべて。
What condition does he have? A heart problem?
ヒーローとなって暴れ回ることができるのはこのたった81マスの盤上のみなのだ。
You can't have any exertion. You need to control your
桐
the food you eat.
山、これが今日の準決勝の棋譜だ。
I'm guessing a heart problem?
兄者、病気のことは桐山には言わないでください。強くなるにはライバルが必須です。あいつは自分じゃ気づいてないけど優しい人間です。そして不安定だ。知ったらきっと手が鈍ります。そしたら僕はもうこれ以上強くなれない。
棋譜は2枚あった。持ち時間をフルに使った最初の1曲。
Second one where he played as fast as possible.
劣勢だった将棋を粘りに粘って優勢に転じたその直後、相手による千日手、その果ての指し直し、
So a draw.
そこからの1分将棋による魂を絞り出すような138手。
Damn.
桐山、お前はそれでも二階堂にこんなむごいことをしてやれるか。
新人戦決勝戦は1週間後、関西将棋会館にて
Will he actually win this time? Hard to say, right?
やばい、降ってきた。いっか、駅まで近いし。走るか。
はい。細い銀の糸みたいな雨の中、走りながら僕は二階堂の棋譜を思い出していた。迷い、ためらい、ひるみながらも、それでも自分の今までを信じて、憧れの地目指して、火の玉みたいに突き進む。まるで一編の冒険小説のようだった。
How am I even supposed to do a review on this episode? Alright, see you guys after this. Alrighty, so like I said, this series certainly has a tendency to get serious and heavy real fast here. In fact, I think throughout the besides the first 1 or 2 episodes, we've been constantly being battered by some bad news, I guess you could say. In fact, we haven't even solved Hina's situation yet, and here we are in another situation. But let's talk about it in order here, right? So first of all, the first half of it was indeed dealing more with Hina's situation, and particularly with Rei's consulting with Hayashida Sensei, right? And I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. You know, this teacher is awesome. I think he might actually be my favorite character from this series so far. He's everything I think a teacher should be, right? And I guess also in a sense, I feel like he is treating this situation in the exact same way that I feel it should be treated, right? If you guys recall from when this entire bullying thing started happening, I've made it clear that this is not a case where you can just jump in and say how could they do this? How could those bullies do this kind of thing? How could they be so cruel and show outrage towards that sort of situation, right? That's not going to solve anything. And in fact, these situations are very complicated. They require time, if not anything else, in order to resolve it, right? So the sensei's his advice has always been, take it easy, take a step back, try and see the entire situation, and not really rush headlong into any sort of conclusion or whatnot, or think that you're compelled to do something immediately, right? I really like the way that he's treating that situation. On the other hand, once he learned of what the teacher was actually saying, right, what Hina's homeroom teacher, how she treated the situation, he got completely outraged, right? And I feel the exact same way as well. I don't think that there's any need to be completely outraged by the bullies for one. Sure, they're doing something bad, but at the same time, I've said it again. They're students. This is a very awkward time in people's lives and whatnot. These kinds of things happen. It's not exactly the ideal situation, but you gotta deal with it, right? However, this homeroom teacher, she is in a position of authority. She is supposed to take care of these situations, and you could consider this situation a very very bothersome, very troublesome and whatnot. But what you can't do is turn your back on your student who can only come to you for help, right? If there was any way that Hina could get help from someone else, then sure. Or if you were able to refer to someone else, then sure. I think that even that would be a good outcome. But to just literally shut the door closed in her face. Like, that is completely unacceptable. She is not deserving to be a teacher here. So I 100% agree with Hayashida on this point. And beyond that, I also do like that Ray did figure it out on his own that what he was doing wasn't really productive, as good as well intentioned as he might be. However, on a more forward-thinking note, though, I think I mentioned this in the episode as well. I do think that something that they can do right now is actually introduce Hayashida to Hina, to their family, and just as an outside advisor or consultant, right? He is a teacher after all, and he's certain to have experiences dealing with this kind of situation as well. So if nothing else, at least it provides assurance to Hina that, hey, it's not that all authority figures, not all teachers are like your homeroom teacher, right? And letting her have some faith in instill the education system, and indeed, Hayashida is perfectly capable of providing good advice as well, right? So, and not to mention that it creates there's multiple outcomes. There's multiple good things to come out of this, right? So for one thing, it can restore Hina's faith in the education system. For another, he might actually have some good advice for Hina in terms of how she should deal with this situation. And lastly, in the end, if there does come a day when there is a confrontation between Hina and Akari and her teacher, as well as the bully's parents, then in this capacity, Hayashida could actually have some leg to stand on in terms of standing in and helping out on Hina's side, right? Just a friend of the family and happening to be a teacher as well. In that kind of capacity, then why couldn't he sort of stand in and help them out, right? So that actually solves a lot of different problems, so I do hope that they can actually take that into consideration next. I think that's a pretty good solution to the situation that they are in, actually. So, don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that would be what I would be thinking for the next step, and trying to introduce them to each other and see what comes out of that. Alright, on to the second half, right, with Nikaido. So, I mean, what else can you say? He is definitely a warrior. He is definitely an adventurer, and I feel like similarly to how he warmed into Rei's heart, he probably warmed into us, the viewer's heart as well, right? I mean, he's awesome, right? Sure, you can say that he's also born into a rich family and whatnot, but still, how you make of your life is still entirely on you, right? And indeed, shogi is not something that you can actually get a head start on just because you have rich parents, right? So fully admirable. And I do, beyond. I don't think we need to talk too much more about Nikaido's thing here, because I feel like anyone who was watching the anime would probably feel the same things. I do want to take particular attention to how the adults treated the situation as well, and particularly how they treated Rei, and in terms of allowing him to learn of this situation. I really do like the maturity and the way that they handled this, right? Not treating Rei like a complete child, but at the same time also acknowledging that he is, after all, still not an adult yet, right? So striking a nice balance here, and I think it's kind of how can I say? It's kind of a nice contrast as well with how Hayashida is treating this situation versus how Shimada and the press of the association is treating this situation, right? They're still obvious. They're still thinking of Rei as someone who is responsible and someone who can listen to some stuff that is a bit more serious and whatnot, but yet at the same time still acknowledging that he is a child. After all, he is still a teenager, and there are limits that shouldn't be crossed here, right? So I really do like the sort of delicate balance that they've managed to strike here, and that's really awesome, because even though I don't think children should be treated as adults, when I was a child, there was nothing that infuriated me more than when adults actually treated me as too much of a child, right? And you can't go too much onto either direction. That's not good. And what was the other thing that I wanted to mention? Shoot. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. Dang it. What the hell was it? Well, I totally forgot about it now. So, actually, hold that for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I kind of completely blanked in my mind for a moment there. I typically write these down in bullet points, but since there was only 3 things I wanted to talk about, I figured that I could keep track of them. But anyways, so that was my thinking on that situation. You know, the sort of dynamic between Rei and the other Shimada and other adults with that knew of the situation here. So the last thing that I want to mention is actually Nikaido's condition here. Now I'm not going to try and guess like what exactly it is. I mean, obviously it's some sort of long-term disease and whatnot, where he has to take care of his health. Now, the thing that I want to say here is I do hope that it doesn't turn into a life-threatening situation, and you know, not because of some not because of an out of kindness of heart, right? Even though this might be a little bit heartless to say it like this, if it's for plot reasons, then sure, right? But the reason why I don't want it to turn bad is actually for plot reasons as well. I think this episode in itself, and indeed from what we've seen from Nikaido so far, the anime has already shown that we are able to get ourselves into a very shitty situation without needing it to be life or death, right? Nikaido is already feeling the full brunt of the effects of his illness in terms of the career, in terms of something that he really wants but cannot achieve. I think that in itself is adequate enough to sort of portray the struggle that he is going through, portray the toll that is taken on him, and the toll that it takes on those around him as well. So I kind of hope that they don't go overboard with this and then try to escalate it into, you know, some sort of he's in a critical situation, he's about to die, something like that, right? There's a time and place to do something like that, sure, but I think in this case we don't need to go that route. So if they do go that route, then fine, but I feel like that would kind of be driving it a little too much overboard, right? We don't need to have that much drama in a series here. So I do hope that they keep this in moderation and leave it as it is, because like I said, just the situation as it is right now is already enough to really let us feel for Nikaido, really let us feel for his entire situation, and we don't need it to be escalated any further. So there we go. That's it for episode 30 of March Comes In Like a Lion. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys next time.